the part of the NEC, or the National Electrical Code, that uh, sets the rated ampacity for different conductors is located in Article 310.16 of the National Electrical Code. So let's take a look at that. This here is a chart of Article 310.16. To the far left of the chart, you have all your different wire sizes, and to the right of the chart, you have the allowable ampacity for the conductors with the insulation types within a certain ambient temperature. If you notice, for 14 gauge, 12 gauge, and 10 gauge wire, they all have stars beside them. And the reason for the stars is, if you go to the bottom of the chart there, you'll see that unless it's permitted specifically in Article 240-4E through G, the maximum allowable ampacity for 15 or 14 gauge wire is 15 amps. For 12 gauge wire is 20 amps, and for 10 gauge wire is 30 amps. Sorry about that. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with Article 310.16, but it's just good to know that this is the chart that determines what the allowable ampacity for a specific conductor is, as in relation to the type of insulation that's around that conductor. And for Romex, MC, BX, they all have insulation around the conductors that's relatively equivalent to what we call THHN, which you'll see here, which puts it in a 90C category. So that's the category that we use. Okay, so that's enough with Article 310.16. The next slides I'm going to show you just shows some general uses for the wire sizes that I have up in the left here. 14 gauge wire, and some of its common uses in a residential setting would be for lighting circuits, for general lighting, for general outlets, perhaps a dedicated circuit to a gas furnace, and to a dedicated receptacle for a refrigerator. These are just some of the common uses. And 14 gauge wire is rated at 15 amps. So we're going to move on to 12 gauge here. 12 gauge wire and some of its uses. 12 gauge wire is rated for 20 amps, and some of the places you'll find it in a residential environment will be in the kitchen. By code, you have to have 2 small appliance circuits in the kitchen. The dining room that's adjacent to the kitchen has to have 20 amp circuits installed. The GFCIs in your bathroom are placed on a 20 amp circuit, or perhaps a heavy duty dedicated circuit. It could be for anything from an electric space heater to window air conditioner. Okay, we're going to move right along here. 10 gauge wire and some of its uses. Got to find my mouse here. And you'll notice that I put down on this one 220 volts. That's because the items that I've put here to show some examples for 10 gauge wire they're all rated at 220 volt, and 10 gauge wire is rated at 30 amp. And some of the common uses in your household would be a electric dryer or AC condensing unit. For those of you that have central air, that's the unit that sits outside of your house. That's called an AC condensing unit. A hot water heater, electric hot water heater. All of these items that will be installed on a 30 amp circuit and will be run with 10 gauge wire. Number 6 wire and some of its uses. Again, you'll see the 220 volt at the bottom because all of the items here will be run on a 220 amp circuit. 6 gauge wire is good for 55 amps. And some of the uses would be electric range or a hot tub, not to be confused with a hydro massage tub. The hot tub is a tub that actually has electric heaters built into it that heats the water and keeps the water at a set temperature and so forth and so on. Or a small heat pump. Again, the high current and the power comes from the heating elements that's installed inside the heat pump. All of these are examples of a circuit that would be run with 6 gauge wire and placed on a 50 or 55 amp breaker. It will actually be a 50 amp breaker. It would be kind of difficult to find a 55 amp breaker rated at 220 volt. Okay, so that's pretty much it for some of the common uses for these different wire sizes.